While we've reviewed a couple mobile gaming devices recently, we haven't done a true gaming laptop review in quite a while. And what better way to jump back in than with the beefiest, most over-the-top, stereotypical gamer laptop, complete with a wordy name, the 2025 ASUS ROG Strix Scar 18. We're gonna go over its configurations, pricing, all the specs, customizability, a few features you wouldn't notice right away, and of course, gaming performance. Spoilers, it's a pretty fantastic laptop. First off, every Scar 18 has the same Intel Core Ultra 9 275HX 24-core CPU, a 2560 by 1600 18-inch 16:10 display, and 32 gigabytes of DDR5 5600 RAM. But depending on the model, you can get a 5070 Ti GPU with a 1TB Gen 4 NVMe SSD for $2,700, a 5080 along with a 2TB SSD for $3,400, or a 5090 also with 2TB for $4,500. If you're really hurting for more dedicated RAM, you can get the top-end Micro Center exclusive 64GB version, but that comes with the Apple caliber upcharging of an extra $1,000 on the MSRP. It is currently on sale though with a $900 discount, making it only $100 more than the 32GB version at $4,600, which is a lot more reasonable, if you can call it that. But the specific model we have for review has the 32GB of RAM, a 2TB SSD, and the Tap Daddy 5090 GPU. But when you first turn the laptop on, there's no denying it's for mega gamers. The keyboard has customizable per key RGB, and there's a 360-degree RGB light bar around the bottom edge of the laptop, making it glow like your car from Need for Speed Underground 2, the best Need for Speed, not Most Wanted. And while it may not be RGB, there's a black and white Anonymouse vision array with 810 LEDs shining through 8,448 holes on the back of the lid that you can customize with some presets, a custom animation, or any text you'd like. The 18-inch 2560 by 1600 ROG Nebula HDR mini LED display has got everything you'd want packed into it, with 168 pixels per inch, a 240 Hz refresh rate, NVIDIA's G-Sync, only 3 millisecond gray-to-gray response time, an 88% screen-to-body ratio, 100% DCI-P3 coverage, VESA display HDR 1000, Dolby Vision, up to 1200 nits of brightness, over 2000 dimming zones, and it uses 2 layers of their ambient contrast ratio film to reduce screen glare by 55% for up to 4.5 times better contrast. The second layer being especially useful for wider viewing angles, all giving it a contrast ratio of up to 100,000 to 1. And those stats don't just look good on paper. The clarity and color accuracy are great. When gaming, the 240 Hz is much appreciated, and the viewing angles are really impressive. I couldn't find an angle that the display looked bad, distorted, or even darkened that much. Now, as for cooling all of the hardware that's inside this bad boy, the Scar 18 utilizes 0.1mm copper fins that sandwich an end-to-end vapor chamber for maximum cooling capacity. There are 3 second-gen arc flow fans, 2 of which are bigger and responsible for moving most of the air, with a 3rd auxiliary fan dissipating heat directly from the GPU and VRAM. All that, along with the use of Conductonaut Extreme Liquid Metal, work together to keep the CPU at 85 degrees Celsius and the GPU at 70 degrees Celsius under gaming loads in our tests. The fans also all have dust filters and pull air from every angle, including through the keyboard, and send all that heat out the back to make sure both the laptop and your hands stay cool during longer gaming sessions. The keyboard is comfortable to use with 2mm of travel and a full numpad, and it is just slightly scaled down from a traditional desktop keyboard, which is especially nice when gaming, as your hands can be in a more comfortable position instead of being cramped on the WASD keys as it is on some laptops. It also features 5 customizable hotkeys above the function row. It's got a glass trackpad, which is also quite large at 5.9 inches by 3.9 inches, and it has a good amount of travel and feedback when clicking, and the material feels great. But what material feels great but doesn't look great is the coating that they use on the back of this thing, because it is a fingerprint magnet. We had to clean it multiple times for us to get the beauty B-roll that you're seeing in this video. And there's also plenty of ports, with 3 Type A USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, 2 Thunderbolt 5s with up to 120 gigabytes gigabit per second bandwidth. It has support for DisplayPort 2.1 and power delivery of up to 100 watts, and it also has an HDMI 2.1 port, a 2.5 gigabit per second Ethernet port, and a 3.5mm combo audio jack. And then it has Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4 for additional wireless connectivity. There's also a 1080p webcam with infrared for Windows Hello touchless login, so for all the controller players out there, you can avoid interacting with the keyboard entirely if that's your jam. And when it comes time to upgrade your laptop, although it won't be touchless, the bottom panel does offer toolless removal. When you touch the bottom panel, it's going to show your fingerprints. But the toolless removal allows for quick and easy access to the RAM and both SSD slots, only one of which is used from the factory. And while the SSD it comes with is a Gen 4 drive, both slots support PCI Express 5, so you can upgrade it. But upgrading those internals isn't the only reason to open this thing up. It makes it really easy to clean out the fans themselves and their dust filters. And with how beefy the laptop is, you can use it for productivity tasks too. And with the toolless access and the spare Gen 5 slot just sitting there, it's a great opportunity to use it as semi-permanent storage for any project you're working on instead of dealing with an external drive all the time. And just in case you accidentally only put the system into sleep mode instead of shutting it down before trying to upgrade or swap the drive out, there's an optical sensor that detects when the back cover is removed and automatically shuts down the computer. This whole set of features is just a great example of user-focused innovation we love to see. Also, keep in mind that with the sensor, you have to put the cover back on before the computer will boot, so don't freak out thinking you bricked it when you try to test your new RAM or SSD before you put the cover back on. But once you slap that cover back on, the whole laptop comes in at just over an inch thick, 15.7 inches wide, and 11.7 inches deep. And the body is made out of a mix of ABS and polycarbonate, which the finish on feels quite nice, but as mentioned, fingerprints. And while it might not be the CNC milled aluminum like the Z13 from ROG we previously reviewed, you'll be glad it isn't, because even with the plastic body, this laptop still weighs 7.28 pounds, which is about average for an 18-inch 5090 laptop. But between the size and that weight, it means that this is the kind of laptop that lives either in a backpack or on a desk. It's simply too big and heavy to carry around and use in your hands on a regular basis, unless you're way beefier than anybody here at our office. And one of the things contributing to that weight is a 90 watt-hour battery, which is on par with other laptops in this tax bracket. At 50% brightness, it can stream YouTube in Chrome for about 4 hours and 15 minutes and play games for just under an hour in silent mode, pulling an average of 100 watts, or about 45 minutes in performance mode, which pulls about 120 watts. And to clarify, the different modes, silent, performance, and turbo, aren't just fan curves, they alter the amounts of power each component is allowed to use, meaning it will have a large impact on battery life, heat, and performance. And another thing that helps prolong the battery life for non-intensive use is the mux switch, which with NVIDIA's Advanced Optimus will hot swap between using the integrated graphics or the dedicated GPU based on how demanding your activities are. And when the 5090 is in use, the mux connects it directly to the display, bypassing the integrated GPU altogether for more performance and lower latency. But keep in mind, those features aren't magic and won't keep it alive forever while gaming, so when you inevitably kill it by getting too sucked in, just make sure you've got the beefy 380 watt power supply around, as it can supply more than enough power for all your gaming needs and get the battery back up to 50% in as little as 30 minutes, if the laptop is powered down. If you don't have the power brick around, you aren't entirely out of luck though, because as mentioned above, you can revive it with up to 100 watts through USB-C. Keep in mind, those 100 watts are just barely not enough to support sustained gaming, but it will drastically increase your battery life. Now, for performance, as per usual, we'll start with synthetic benchmarks, which were not done in turbo mode as it gave minimal performance gains, even lost performance in some tests, took a bunch more power, put out a lot more heat, was significantly louder, and can only be used while plugged in. Overall, it's just not a mode applicable for day-to-day use. We wouldn't really recommend it. And since we aren't chasing numbers for this review, but instead trying to give an accurate representation of what you can expect from the machine, we went with performance mode for our testing. In Passmark, this thing got an overall score of 14,882, with CPU score of 55,239, 2D got 1191, and 3D got 32,922, which makes it comparable to a desktop with a Core i9 Ultra 9, what are we calling it, 285, and a 5070 Ti. In Cinebench, the single core score was 128, and multi was 1808. In Geekbench, it got a single core of 2975, multi-core got 19,376, and the GPU score scored 229,734. And lastly, it scored 5641 in 3D Mark Steel Nomad and 20,940 in Time Spy. Now finally, for gaming performance, we tested the same 20 games we normally do with the laptop plugged in, both in performance and turbo mode at 1600p and 1200p with ultra settings, no upscaling, and mixed ray tracing. Note that for a couple of the games that do not support 16:10 aspect ratios like this laptop has, 1440p and 1080p were used. Among our performance mode tests, Black Myth Wukong was the most taxing, as always, with 28 FPS at 1440p ultra with ray tracing. Counter-Strike 2 was able to run the fastest at 237 FPS, and the best performing non-esports titles were God of War Ragnarok with 147, Halo Infinite at 139, and Hitman World of Assassination at 138 FPS. We also did a few tests in silent mode, and it consistently pushed out about half the frames of performance mode. It took less than half the power, going from running the CPU with about 50 watts and the GPU with 135 watts, all the way down to 27 for the CPU and 55 for the GPU. And due to that power decrease, it was able to run a good bit cooler while still being silent, with the CPU going from 85C to 75C, and the GPU went down from 70C to 64C. But in performance mode at 1600p, it got an average of 99 FPS in our benchmarking suite, with 60 FPS 1% lows and 46 0.1% lows. And at 1200p, it got 125 FPS average, 74 1% lows, and 57 0.1% lows. And with turbo mode, there weren't any huge changes, going from an average FPS of 99 to 103 and 125 to 129 in 1600p and 1200p respectively, for an across the board about 4% increase. And for those of you who are curious how its gaming capability compares to desktop hardware, it performed just over our test with an Ultra 9 285K and a 5070 desktop. Quite possibly to 5070 Ti levels, but we can't say for sure as we still don't have a Ti card to test with currently. But all in all, the SCAR 18 packs a punch, as it should. It screams gamer as much as you can ask for, with the underglow and anime array, and is still nice and simple if you turn all the lighting off. The IR camera for Windows Hello and the toolless backplate are great quality of life features. It has not bad battery life for a massive chunky 5090 gaming laptop. It has plenty of ports and just offers a great seamless experience with no trouble playing any game you want. So while it does cost a kidney, as all 5090 laptops do, you're getting what you pay for. Although, as we've seen from plenty of other reviews, if you want your best bang for buck, a 5080 laptop is going to make a little bit more sense, because the 5090s tend to perform about 10 to 15% better for a lot more money. However, because we only had the 5090 for testing and not the 5080, we can't say for certain what the SCAR 18's 5080 performance would be like. But based on our experience with the highest quality hardware that they pack into it, I think the 5080 is going to do just great for you at a significantly lower cost.